Today on Building the Open Metaverse.
When I was at GM, nobody understood my willingness to suddenly stop my career as a car designer to come to the ultimate position of being the head of design, especially in the automobile, is the quest that every designer wants to basically run after.
Welcome to Building the Open Metaverse, where technology experts discuss how the community is building the open metaverse together. Hosted by Patrick Cozy and Mark Petit.
Hello and welcome back, Metaverse builders, dreamers, and pioneers. You are listening to Building the Open Metaverse Season 5, the podcast that is your portal into virtual world and spatial computing. My name is Mark Petit, and my co-host Patrick Cozy is not with us today. He's flying around the world somewhere between Las Vegas and Tokyo on an important business trip. As you know, this podcast brings you the people and the projects that are at the leading edge of building the immersive internet of the future, the open and fair metaverse for all. And today, we have a special guest joining us on that mission. Our guest is the acclaimed industrial designer Anne Asensio. She's the Vice President of Design Experience at Dassault Systèmes. And Anne will share insights from her remarkable career spanning Renault, General Motors, and now Dassault Systèmes. And she will also share her passion for human-centered design. Anne, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark.
The usual first question in our podcast is to ask you to describe your journey to the metaverse in your own words.
Something that I was basically always passionate about is to design a new world or a better world or a new world. If I want to take Georges Ballandier's quote, as designers, we basically are in the quest of redefining and redesigning our surroundings. So we are always carry on the willingness to create not just objects, because design is mostly related to designing objects, but in reality, I think we are more keen to change the experience we have as human beings with our surroundings, how we are living in our environment. When the technology, with the extraordinary acceleration of the technology with the internet and also video games, he suddenly took a completely new light. It's just like suddenly when you are a designer, you basically get the tools that you were dreaming of to actually going from your virtual ideas that you have in your head, and you can structure those ideas and deliver them to everyone. I found this very excited. I have two personal note about my interaction with the metaverse. The first one is very personal and intimate. Is I have two sons. They both were completely captured because of their generation with the video games, and they both are 3D artists. One worked for Fortiche, and he's an animator, character animator, and he's doing a wonderful career there. And the other one is also a 3D artist after trying a career as a designer, but he wants to get he basically spends his time in the metaverse. He's living in there all day long. So this is my personal connection with the metaverse. Is my two sons live in it in a daily basis. And the second is how I basically started to get in touch with those technology, specifically the virtual reality, because at Renault, early 90s, end of 80s, I would say 87, 89, I was working on a concept called Scenic. And at the time, we had a small group of magicians, really magicians, they call themselves in which group, and with those people, I would like to name Bruno Simon, that was leading that group, and I know you know him. We were basically having the very early stage of combining 3D design and representation of 3D into, at the time, very early stage of virtual reality world. And I remember very crystal clear the first time I saw the concept car Scenic as a digital asset running, and actually it's a INA archive. We can still see it on a fully artificial ground. It was really, really this early stage. And at the time, I was completely fascinated about this experience. Even if you look at it today, you say, wow, that's really, really, really cheesy. You know, it's just like this kind of texturing. It looks like a dead world. Okay, it's fully dead. But when you can look back, and this was just like actually exactly the same age of my sons, and what we can do today in Metaverse, in video games, with the Vision, with the Oculus, it's just amazing. This has been just in my lifetime, just in that period.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Bruno Simon. I was at TDI at the time, and we worked together quite a bit, all the way to the Raccoon project back in, was it 93, I think?
Yeah, 94, 93, 94. But the Scenic was really the first one because it was the first show car, actually. It was, at the time, we call it Z01. And we did also the Laguna, Z02, and the Raccoon was Z03. So anyway, but just the gap between the Scenic and the Raccoon, it was about 2-3 years, and just the gap was huge, just amazing. The car was in motion in a real environment, because that was also what I found very interesting is that level of experimentation in defining what could be a metaverse. And today we sometimes think it's a fully CGI environment, and it's untrue. I think a metaverse could be defined in a multiple way, and we are basically probably scratching just the surface. It's probably going to be a mix of many, many things, and much more of that from what we see today.
I want to come back on the Scenic because our audience is from all over the world, and they may not know this French car. But in 1991, you designed that concept car, the Scenic, and it was the first time a car looked like that with bigger windows, more space inside. I mean, I would even say that you invented a genre vehicle that ultimately gave us all the crossovers and the SUV that we have today. So I think you said that you were attracted by automobiles because they are the most complex product ever designed by human beings. So tell us about how you got to design vehicles and actually transform the design of vehicles.
Basically, I think I was more attracted about the capability that design can do about transforming life, our lives, our everyday life. At the time, being an industrial designer was mostly a male place. And when it comes to the car, and specifically the automobile, the people who used to design and style the cars, they were so in love with the automobile and its heritage and patrimoine, they basically didn't have the willingness to change it or to think in an innovative way about what really this type of object is delivering to the people, to the life of people. So at the time, I was working on a project, a research project for my master, was called Véhicule à grande habitabilité, because I was at the time, Giugiaro, there were the Magagamma, there were a lot of studies going on. Honda was coming up also with this, in 82, they came with the Honda Today. That was this small, it was already a small Twingo, small monospace with this very fast windshield. We also had Gandini providing us, when we started at Renault, with this type of vehicle. So I will not say I did invented it. It was in the air du temps. But what was very interesting is it was really a good moment to think about a car from a conceptual standpoint. That means by opening the categories of design, and not just being styling what we knew about the category of design, like a 3-box car, like a regular sedan or a truck. It was a show car. It was requested by Patrick Lequément, and it was also leveraging. It was an opportunity for me to leverage from my studies in school, in which I was working on such concepts, and it was also questioning the process. it was at a time where we were starting to see those first three-dimensional tools. Alias, Wavefront was already around. So it was a perfect, I will say, moment to experiment all in one what could be a new concept for transportation, for mobility. And so the Scenic is not just in the genealogy of doing a new concept. It's a moment in time in which many things were converging, and Renault were giving to themselves, to the design team, the capability to do it as a laboratory for thinking the design itself, the architecture of the vehicle. We had a core team of the contribution coming from multiple expertise was also very unique. In the past, designers were styling, then the engineers were taking the styling and putting into a blueprint, very long blueprint, 6 meter long blueprint. They were starting to do small mechanical parts in 3D. It was really very sequential. And the Scenic was probably the laboratory of what just become the way to do cars in the future, where everything came together. The team were working in a collaborative way, in a co-design approach. That was basically the condition for innovation. So the way we were doing the car and the way the car looks like and the transformation of the architecture all came together. And that's really a moment. And, you know, when you have something that just come in the end of people, it's amazing how we, as just consumer or user or citizen, when something is very strong, like today, the Metaverse, you can feel that you just have passed a step, that something happens, that you are moving to a new level of inventivity or human ingenuity, I would say. So it's not really egocentric, but I think the Scenic was just a signal of what just become the way we were designing cars in the future, typically using 3D. Then, because of 3D, we were called about how to represent 3D, how to make decisions. So suddenly, we were attracted by what was happening in the art and entertainment area, in which before the car industry didn't have a clue what's going on. Suddenly, the entertainment and the car came together. And I was just having and starting my career at that moment. So Metaverse is really, to me, it really started when we had those big, huge screens in which we were able to see virtual representation of real things, that means real design. I remember very well, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I realize it now, that I was ready to take risks. Because as a woman, nobody would have expected me to actually be fully compliant. You know, they were always this kind of, she's a woman, what kind of design she's going to be doing, you know? When I was at GM, nobody understood my willingness to suddenly stop my career as a car designer, when you have to imagine that for a man, especially a designer, to come to the ultimate position of being the head of design, especially in the automobile, is the quest that every designers want to basically run after. And when I get to that position, I just quit. And they didn't get it. I say, and you go back to France to work for Dassault? And it's because at the time I was working on a sequel, full sales car with Bob Lutz, and the electrical car, the second electrical car that GM was doing. The first one was the Insight, that was a long time ago. I realized by working back with people in California, Brent Ferren from Applied Mind, that was a former Disney Imagineer designer, that there will be a possibility to do much more if I just get away from the car industry, in which was very much entrenched in the traditional design processes, very industrial. And by moving in a virtual design company, there will be more possibility to actually reflect on the way to do design. And to do design leveraging what is coming. That means those virtual tools, and go beyond. Basically, take the responsibility to design those tools and not just being behind the computer and using them as tools. Actually, that's the term we use: software, tools, solutions. But nobody's looking at those tools as a space for thinking in which we will be living. That is really the mission of a designer, thinking about the world. But if the world that was real become unreal, that means virtual, or if we call it virtual, where are the designers designing those worlds? So that's really where I shifted myself. I came to Dassault Systèmes, met Bernard Charles, and I said, I will be designing experiences. We were designing experiences at GM, but they were brand experiences, as luxury brands are doing also. You have to keep and design the DNA of your brands by leveraging not just the product, but the surroundings, the total, I will say, touch point that you want to give to your customer. But I was feeling so unclosed in doing those experiences, because they were just only for the purpose of selling cars. And I found this very reduction of the capability a designer can do. We can design world. Every designer wants to design worlds and the thing that goes in it and the people interacting in it. So coming to Dassault Systèmes at the time was maybe I thought maybe there would be a possibility to execute that dream.
You arrived in GM in 2000. I mean, the New York Times wrote an article on it, and I don't know if you remember that. And people might not know that cars like the Camaro are actually, the head of design was a woman. I think it was a big thing for GM, and I think you were very successful. And so, before we go back to Dassault, you managed a lot of firsts in your career. So, what do you think enabled you to take on this leadership role, and at a very young age as well?
We're operating in a world in which nobody were expecting a woman to succeed. Okay, it's so in some ways you have nothing to lose. So that's the first thing. So I probably didn't have second thoughts when I was having the conviction I should run, I should do it. I was not questioning myself too many times. I was just running. Also, I think it's my character. I think people around me are telling me when you get something in. I mean, it's probably one of the character of people. I'm not afraid of failing, or I'm not afraid of maybe something more important, losing credits. I think what restrains people of making and taking risks is mostly because they are too much looking or too much concerning about what people may think about what they are doing, or too much concern about what people think. I am absolutely not concerned about what people think. So that's just giving me a lot of freedom. And I think it's a condition for doing those first, as you say it. I was lucky. I guess I was lucky. People say there are no such thing as luck. You probably are provoking the luck. I'm passionate. I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. I'm being so fortunate to only do what I like. I've never felt, or if it came to me where I felt I get a little bit like not having the possibility to get to the next step. And the next step doesn't mean upper, the next step means to the place in which there may be a reason for me to be there and give sense or meanings to what I'm doing. So I didn't know I was doing it. It just happens. But back to the first, it's funny that we are getting back to the Scenic, but the Scenic was a competition, in design, the way it works. The head of design at the time, Patrick Lequaimont, he convoked all of the designers. He says, we're going to do the first show car ever for Renault. At the time, he was calling it the Mini Max. So that was something that, because we did the Espace, so the Espace was already such a success that we wanted to capitalize on being the first ever, knowing that the P34 was also presenting at Chrysler, and Chrysler did the Voyageur at the same time, but it was the same Matra idea that was presented both at Chrysler and at Renault. But Renault did really the Matra Espace. When it came, he asked to every designers to come up with ideas and come up with the sketches and at being selected, I could have missed that opportunity. It could have been Jean-Pierre Plouet who being selected, or Thierry Métros, because we were just like lining up all those friends that we still very much friends today. But Le Clément says, for this project, maybe I came up with so many, he says, Anne will be the designer. So I was just like very early on in my career. I just came back from a big project that I was doing in the US also. That was a Jeep Junior that was also in 80, 87, 88, 89. That basically gets stopped in 90 because the joint venture failed. So I was having just my first project already giving me some confidence about what I was doing. It was a very successful car, even if it shows up as a Jeep Liberty much later on in the market. But I had built a little bit of an esteem, and I'm being selected. But I was just 27 years old, and it was a show car, and it was one of the first show car Renault ever made. So I was really fortunate to just be on that window. If the car would have been bad, people will just have remembered me of, oh, yes, this woman at Renault, wow, you remember the car? So, yes, you can be given a chance, but you also need to get this chance, and you need to, it's like you get the ball, but you need to make the try, and then your career get launched. And also, I need to say, Patrick Le Clément gave me, later on, big responsibility when I was just 30. I was director of the small and mid-sized car. He was trusting me and giving me that. It was probably because I was also. I think I'd never been just a stylist. I think something else. I basically were designing cars, but I think my quest is not about cars; it's about design. And changing the world by design. So that's why I changed in my career.
How far are we from the dream technological platform for a designer like you?
We are really reaching now to a level in which we can even excite our eyes beyond to what any human beings have ever been excited. Now, the concern I have is the accessibility of those technology. In a way, my concern is actually more on the human and social and societal area. Learning a kid to draw, that's what I do to my sons and also to every young person and younger kids in my family, to me is an essential capacity for being able to understand how, as your body will interact with a world, whatever it is, physical or virtual, doesn't matter. The hand and the brain is an important tool that we own to actually interact with the real world. Whether virtual or real or hybrid, doesn't matter. And what is happening, what just concerned me, is the language in which we talk to those technology. We sometimes shortcut and doesn't take enough respect for coming from a human body that is basically didn't have much involved for the last 3,000 years, and the extreme capability. You see where I'm going. Wherever the prompt or the abstraction 0101, the calculation that basically push push us designers or humans to an area in which we should not go. The technology by itself, it's one thing. What we need is to create the interface toward those technology in which we respect the fact that we are made of flesh, made of tactile capability, and by the way, the metaverse will be successful when we will be finding exactly the right comfortable but also accessible, and accessible not just because of access but acceptable interface. I give you an example. I was just on my flight back from Korea, sitting nearby a young, she was basically 12 or 13 years old. She had her tablet, the small tablet, and she was drawing. And you cannot imagine how fast she was drawing. She was drawing, then zooming, all of those gestures you have on the tablet to go, switch, add layers, come back, put, and so on. And she was putting depth on those layers that are 2D. That was almost when she was narrowing down and she was so agile. I mean, her fingers, but she was drawing as I do on the paper. But at the same time, she was basically developing a full array of gesture with that technology that was just this flat and that pen and the way she was turning and getting in that metaverse of drawing. That I was looking at that and I was saying, we are just at the beginning, and I think if we go and if we work very hard to maintain and respect this quality of interaction between our brain and what we want to say, what we want to design, and those virtual manifestation of our creation, we will be in a very nice future.
So when you look at AI, generative AI, and using text and voice as an input, do you think that could help with the democratization of the access?
Drawings and readings are text as being what institute the humans. Lejeune say it's by language that we institute. And that's actually a very interesting topic for deeper research. We only talk about the prompt that are basically text, but texts are not just text. Texts are symbolization of previous image, because the text, the alphabet, come from image that was basically a way for humans to actually find a way to translate to another human the world they see. We all see subjectively the world we see. So the text was just this nice, long, extreme condensation of invention of communication among humans. So the fact that we right now, through the text, control worlds, sounds to me just like a nice return on back where we are. So that's why I'm just so keen to make sure that prompting and defining worlds it will be still in this, I call it a practice of singularity and not a practice of generality. And you know where I'm going, but it's, I agree completely on your words. I'm just working on your words. Open, fair, interoperable, but also putting the creation at the center. And creation doesn't mean it's only sketches. I also write. I write a lot. I think the fact that we are focusing on keeping our young to be still alert and read and write and being able to actually imagine by word and text a world, to me is the same thing as sketching. It's just one of the many means humans have invented to institute a place in which we can live together. Don't forget the law are being created by text. So we can imagine quite nicely that world could be, it's just that those technology give us, like, instead of having a book, we get a three-dimensional world. So what? It's our inventivity. So the most important thing is not what the technology will offer, because they will offer a wonderful thing, is who is scripting those worlds? Who is writing those worlds? If it's still us as human beings, it's fine. The danger would be that someone do and write the world for us.
And I never thought about it this way.
You know, when you are a designer, you're always navigating between narrative, because a designer, when you are designing an experience, you basically script the experience. It's a scenario. It's exactly like doing a scenario for a game design or a scenario for a movie. Actually, and you know, exactly, and you know, since now most of the manifestation of my design is not anymore a physical object like a car or a very complex, but something that will be only presented as a first presentation, and I'm not saying representation because it's the first time it's being presented, so first presentation in a virtual universe. It just leads to this question that it's first and foremost a script, a scenario, and before we engage on coding, because coding, it's still, you know, you need to, even if now we have those AI that just will help us to code in a blink of an eye, where before we were coding, still you need to know what to code. And to know what to code, we use a lot of video. Actually, I have a filmmaker. The first thing I did when I came to Dassault Systèmes, I said, oh, the kind of designers I need is a réalisateur, someone who knows how to transform a script into a video, in which we basically create our first red wire of the scenario. And because it's very quick to do a video, sometimes piecemeal video, and then we can code. But now we're probably going to skip also that. Basically, we skip the video with the prompt and the artificial intelligence right now. And what is also very amazing is all the assets that we are working on now are becoming our library. And what is quite amazing is the second aspect of the role of a designer is the curation. When you have a pile of, it's like a cook, okay? You have the fridge, you want to make a nice meal, you have to select which, you know, ingredients you get. So the curation, like as we do when we do an exhibit, an installation, or a design proposition of an experience, it's all about curation. And those metaverse, well, they are crying for curation. It's not just like a collection of assets that you put in it, and you have decorators, designers for, like, you know, those virtual, for the luxury brands. They all do those kind of retail, beautiful, branded experience. But often it's, I would say, it's lack of curation, it's lack of the spirited expression of the subjectivity of a particular creator. So they think about the creator that is being translating into this retail, but they forget that the retail itself is a medium for creation. So curation is going to be probably one of the key role of design within those metaverse. So basically, designers, we have to know how to write. They're going to have to know how to be and translate their imagination in the traditional medium that are basically now exactly what you need with those artificial intelligence interactor. I can call them interactor to define the work. And by the way, those metaverse that we are designing right now, they are dynamic. They are not just like a still representation. People think, oh, okay, we're going to be a copy-paste. I'm thinking Assassin's Creed, you know, where you have to set up your game design in Florence or wherever. They are not such thing. I mean, we can do that. It's still very cool because for the museum, but it's very rational and literal. Actually, what is really fun is to actually imagine a world in which basically you are in interaction with. And we know that it's already happening. The world is being configured to your own, I would say, it could be even your humor. Okay, today I want to be happy, or today I want to, and the world will be just, because we see it already. We are doing it, we are using it. But this will be very selfish if we just imagine a world for our own pleasure, comfort, entertainment. What I see, and I get to the WDO topic, those worlds are becoming an incredible level for the challenges of the world that we are living in today. Because we have to change everything. We have to change our industry, the way we consume, our behaviors of as human beings. And there are no way we can change if we cannot see the impact of that change. We need evidence that if we take those kind of direction in the way we are designing products, recycling is definitely not anymore the topic. Even to reimagine the full industry is not enough. We need to change the way we interact with all of the things we do. That means design becomes really at the core of it. In this case, those virtual worlds have to be just as many simulation tryout. We call it digital twinning, but right now they are still very rational. They are here to improve and by slow incremental parameters, the way we can slowly transition to maybe improve our CO2 footprint or anything. But designers can go right away to what may be a desirable world, an incentive world. And this is much more than just trying to see how the finance will run in Metaverse or how I will be buy goods in Metaverse. This is really too much today's world.
Let's unpack a little bit because this is fascinating. So the WDO is the World Design Organization, and you're one of the pillar of that organization. So, and I remember you gave a presentation. You talk about plastic and how plastic, defined multiple generation of consumerism. And where design become the art of making things you actually don't really need. And now I really like how you're using the technology and this intersection of design technology and sustainability to propose something else. So tell us about the mandate of WDO.
The WDO being created in 1953 by a French guy, Jacques Vienneau. He was one of the founders with others. And they gather as industrial designers looking at how to improve by design. The mandate is really to improve the world, because they were disciples of the Bauhaus philosophy. Bauhaus means Bauhaus, construire la maison, house, but house is the planet. It's not just the house. So Bauhaus is how to construct and work and define and shape the world we live in, the world considering as the habitability of the human. That means the earth. The WDO today is an organization that is accredited by the UN, and we follow the roadmap of the 17 SDGs, in which we have a clear mandate to improve the world in those 17 areas of improvement, like water consumption, reduce the poverty, accessibility to the education, ocean, acidity, and so on. So all of those SDGs. And it's today a very large amount of a mix of design entities. It could be first the schools, the design schools, the research labs, academics. Those represent almost half. Then you split with professional, promotional of design, and also newcomers like the corporate companies that are willing to basically leverage design in transforming themselves, and the cities. Cities is a new pillar, as I was describing, because the city is basically not an object. It's probably the perfect playground for us to imagine the condition of how we will be living together, because the concentration of people in one particular location and knowing that that's where we will be living, and most people will be living on Earth in cities. We have to consider cities as the playground for what may be the way we can. Plus, it calls also for rural areas because we have to think about how we get the food from one place to the cities and the people in the cities. Anyway, WDO is really good in helping to give to a global stage the possibility for every designers everywhere in the world to be at the to understand the best of art of what could be good design public policies. Public policies is where we will be living tomorrow. That's where we put the regulation in place. But those public policies have to basically being pushed by a proposition coming maybe from citizens in democratic countries, but we also have to be creative about those public policies. I propose to the WDO to leverage, I become basically the first data strategy officer at the WDO, because before they were basically keen to protect on the process of design, the way design is basically approaching with a human-centered approach, a healthcare service or good product. And here I was telling them that they have to be ahead of time and understanding that they are basically having data, and those data will be just and could be transformed through those metaverse and through those digital twin. The actionable solution, technical solution, for them to demonstrate how we can measure the impact of design. We are starting now to put in some program like the Protopolis that I was mentioning in Bengaluru, the convergence of the design best of art, best breed processes and approach and technology of Metaverse. And I just hope that we will be able to have more and more designers willing to improve the world we live in, to maybe tackle those challenges with climate change, with the issues of, like you described, the end of the plastic era that was basically running from the 60s, that was basically completely exploding because of design. And now we have to just reverse the situation to go back to a much more decent approach of goods and packaging and anything. How we do that? Well, because the metaverse could help us to actually see how alternative could basically be livable and get the industry to shift. At the end, the industry will shift only if they think they can just do it without dying. And that's what those virtual twins, and if they are being, I would say, populate with design démarche, design strategies, design approach, I will say design incentive, like experiential incentive proposition, people will say, yeah, I'm ready to shift. You know, it's very funny. I was listening a podcast on sustainability, and they were like keeping saying all of the problem. And at the end, I say how we can get people, how we can change people behaviors. That is basically the only way for us now to save our future. And they were talking about the fact that we are all addicted about the life we are in, including China. Everywhere in the world, everybody expect to live as Westerners. That is completely insane. But how we can change that? Well, today we're so addicted about the comfort that all of those industry and design and plastic and as providing as quality of life. There are no way we're going to go back and live like Amish, as Macron was saying. We need to actually create a new incentive. And the question is, if we are addicted today about the way we live in the real materiality of the world in which we are, with the CO2 footprint, with all of what is coming, designers and metaverse can basically deliver a new addiction. So people are very afraid of the metaverse as a new addiction for people they would be living in. But if it's very well done, it's maybe a good thing that we get addicted to something that would be saving the biodiversity, saving the extraction of resources that soon, if it's not already there, completely extinguished. So that's really, and I'm an optimistic person because I'm a designer. So we always think there may be a solution. The Metaverse is just like an open world in which we can basically offer alternative to the today's world. And it's not a bad thing. And maybe it would be the only way to protect the natural world. I mean, I don't know if there are such thing as natural world because everything is artificial. But Don Norman just wrote this book, that we need to design a better world. And by the way, it's a design job because everything is artificial. So designers are the masters of artificiality. So
Look, I'm also an optimist, and now I know you give me more reason to be an optimist. And that vision is actually very powerful. And I'm so glad you were able to share this with us today. So our final question, we're out of time. We could have spoke for a couple of more hours about so many other topics, but our usual question to close the podcast is there a person, institution, or organization that you would want to give a shout out to today?
If I go back to WDO, I found a community of people willing to change the world, truly change the world. They are optimistic. In some ways, they may be idealist. And what I miss and what we all miss is the counterpart in the area of institutionalization of such a possibility. The designers, wherever in the industry, we are dreamers, and people say, "Oh yeah, dreamers, give us your ideas." Then we make the real thing. Like this man with the red hat in Le Petit Prince. I would love to see a politician or to be serious as they should be and stop doing what they do and start to see if they can just implement on a society level, on a political level, all of what designers will probably populate in those metaverse and learn from those metaverse propositions and not see that as a entertainment, a lose of time, gaming, whatever it is. Take it seriously. So I would like the serious people, the counterpart of the world, the people who are supposed to make decisions. Maybe it's us. Maybe they don't exist anymore. Maybe that counterpart body or entity is maybe already us acting in the metaverse. So maybe that thing, person, or body of a does not exist yet. Maybe we're going to have to invite it together. We need to have more designers in metaverse, Mark.
Build it in a fair and open way and prove that it could be the blueprint for a better world. So, and thank you so much for joining us today. Your insight and experiences have been incredibly enlightening. It's not every day that we get to hear from someone who's been at the forefront of reshaping the design landscape across, notable giants like Renault, GM, and Dassault Systèmes. Your holistic approach to design and improve lives and create sustainable futures is not only inspiring, but it feels like a vital blueprint for the industry. And your passion for conceptual thinking, collaboration, leveraging technology is also a new standard. So we're so happy to hear your optimism and encouragement for tackling important challenges and hopefully become a beacon for all aspiring designers. Thank you again, Anne, for being such an influential force and for sharing your remarkable journey with us.
Thank you, Mark.
And of course, a huge thank you to our ever-growing audience. You can reach us for feedback on our website, buildingtheopenmetaverse.org, as well as subscribe to our LinkedIn page or our YouTube channels or the podcast platforms. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Anne. It was amazing.